Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and I'm here with the new Blazer EV. If you remember a year ago, this thing grabbed every headline in sight, and now, a year later, they've almost secretly rolled it out onto dealership lots. So thanks to my friends at Broadhead Chevrolet, I'm able to show you everything you need to know about the new Blazer EV. Let's get into it. The first thing we have to do is kind of set the record straight and talk about what is this thing and how does it compare against the sister vehicle that'll come in, the EQuinox EV. Since they did a silent rollout, there isn't a whole lot of info out there on this thing yet. The Blazer is bigger than the Equinox, so I'd assume that stays the same with the EVs, and yet everything that I see online says this thing compares against things like the Ioniq 5, the EV6, the MachE, and the Model Y, which is the flock I'd bet the Equinox EV will be pitted against as well. So time will tell. Now let's get some EV stuff out of the way right away. Now there's basically 3 flavors that you can get your Blazer EV. Look at this charging door. It moves a little slowly, but maybe that's for drama. But basically there's 3 trims. You can get the LT, that'll be front wheel drive. You can get the RS, which is what we have here. That can be rear wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and you can get up to 320 miles in rear-wheel drive or 275 for all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is going to get you 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque, which translates 0 to 60 in about 6.5 to maybe 7 seconds. And charging, that's going to add about 78 miles per 10 minutes if you can find a charger fast enough. But that's for the RS here. The SS, the big power one, will come later in the spring of 24. That's going to be all-wheel drive standard, 557 horsepower, 648 pound-feet, 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, and even more range, which is rare for something with the bigger power. That thing's going to have 290 miles of range, and supposedly it'll have Super Cruise standard. And other EV stuff people always wonder about, does it have a frunk? And on the Blazer EV here, you can see that no, we don't have a frunk, but we do have the Chevy bow tie, we have a little bit of decorative finning, and most importantly, you have the Fireman hat. But speaking of the frunk, we're going to check out the trunk itself. Now it is reasonably big. This is bigger than what you're going to get in an Ioniq 5, a Polestar 2, a BZ4X. It is going to be a little bit smaller than you'll get in the Tesla Model Y, and the seats don't fold from back here. You do have to grab the back of the seat, but it's really not that far. You can grab it if you're a reasonable heighted human being. But you can see, obviously, the seats do fold totally flat, and you have a huge space here now. Of course, power trunk. Interestingly, no close and lock, just close. But decent trunk. And this is kind of funky if you're not used to it. There is no start-stop button. So you come in, you sit, close the door, foot on the brake, car springs to life, use your Mercedes-style shifter into drive, and then you're off. Pretty cool. And then when you're done, just throw it in park, foot off the brake, get out, and the car turns itself off. Cool. And the next thing I want to talk about is screens, and obviously this is a big part of the interior here. This screen is your 11-inch digital instrument cluster. You can press this button here and you have a bunch of different views. That's very much like Audi's virtual cockpit where you can see the map, and since this has Google built in, it looks pretty much the same if you want to have like the actual satellite view. You also do have a head-up display, which is quite nice and something that you don't get everywhere. And then around the side here, you have an 18-inch infotainment system. This thing is huge, and it's also standard, which is fabulous. Like I said, you have Google built in, which means you get Google Maps, you get Google Assistant, and all that stuff. The graphics are great. It's very quick. I've had no issues with it. Sorry for the bubbling. I did that. That's my fault. Sorry, friends at Broadhead Chevrolet. But you also have your vehicle status screen, which we showed you in the Colorado. So you can see different stuff like tire pressure, charge efficiency, energy usage. I mean, very, very cool stuff. But you also get things that you would normally expect, like wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, shift into reverse, and you have great 360 cameras. They don't take up the whole screen, but they are pretty good, and you can see everything. You've got different angles that you can choose from, including a trailering one, which we talked about in our pros and cons video. And this is your volume knob, which kind of floats, and then it builds around the knob as you adjust the volume. Kind of cool. You've also got a secret power button for your center screen here on top of the infotainment. And then we have to talk about headlight controls because you were all very interested in it with the Colorado, and it's the same here. It's not on your stalk here. They are automatic though, and they're automatic high beams. But if you really need to control them yourself, you go to Controls, you go to See More Controls, and then it's in your Lights menu here, and you can adjust everything from here. So again, auto high beams you do have. Dome light, off, headlights, auto. So you shouldn't have to go in here, but if you need to, it is a couple clicks away. Personally, I'm okay with it because you have auto headlights and high beams. Not an issue for me. And then there's Super Cruise. Super Cruise is Chevy, GMC, Cadillac, GM's autopilot system. And it is fantastic. It is very, very good. You can supposedly option it on any trim. I don't know if that's confirmed. Any trim, what I've heard, of Blazer EV. I've also heard rumor that you will get it on the SS model as standard. Again, we're not sure. Every year I see less and less cars come out with Super Cruise for chip reasons, for price reasons, so we'll see when the SS comes out in the spring. And then there's something on the steering wheel that I really like. You see this? You know on the Hyundai Ioniq 5 we were just in, you had paddles here and here to adjust more or less regen? Well, here you have something a little bit different. This is a regen paddle that you just hold when you want to apply regen braking. When you release it, you're more free coasting. You do also have a one pedal drive option, but if you just want to add a little bit of regen to help your braking, you can use that with this paddle here. I like that. It's just kind of on demand. You can do it when you want. And I want to talk about drive modes. You scroll over here, you go into drive modes. And it's not just drive modes that you have, but you do have normal, sport, snow and ice, and then a custom mode. And then in your settings menu, you have things like teen driver, so you can see how fast and reckless they've been driving. You've also got buckle to drive, so the car won't put itself into drive until you've buckled the seatbelts. Kind of nice safety features. And I just want to touch on styling because we'd be remiss if we didn't. Now, I like the styling here. In a world full of egg-shaped EVs like from Mercedes or Tesla, we have some styling and some attitude here. It's very low and wide and squat looking. It looks very sporty and aggressive, and I like that. When you have your headlights on, they are full LED all the way across. And in some models, you'll even be able to get this bow tie on the front to light up. Lower fascia, of course, it looks like a grille, but it's all sealed off for aerodynamics. You've got your trim RS here. You've got functional aerodynamics, bringing air around the side of the car. And as you come around the side, you can see the 21-inch wheels that you get on your RS model here. Very cool. I do like, it's kind of like a 6-clover type wheel, but it looks very, very cool. And again, on your driver's side is where you're going to have your charging door. You push that, it thinks about it for a minute, and then it opens itself very slowly. And then it closes itself even slower. It does do that little thunk. It has done it every time I've opened it up. You do have a little indentation here that you can see for styling purposes. And when the charging door is open, you can still open the driver's side door. And the door won't open far enough to actually crunch that thing, which is very good, of course. But then stepping around to the other side, let's look at the profile of the car. It is long and it is low, and you can see the wheels are at the extreme ends, front and rear of the vehicle. It looks very cool. You've got your kind of blacked out A, B, C, and D pillars for almost a floating roof design, and you've got blacked out window treatments, black wing mirror. You've got touch sensitive lock and unlock on front and rear. That's genuine luxury stuff. You don't see that everywhere. And you don't have a panel roof here, but you can option one if you'd like. And then around back, again, very wide, very low, very aggressive looking. No full width LED tail bar here, but I do like the way that the tail lights kind of work in. You've got your RS in red, all-wheel drive in black, and then Blazer with the blue E, which is how I've seen every electric Chevy come out, is with this blue E, which makes me wonder what they're gonna do when they get to a model that doesn't have an E in it like the Trax. So that's the exterior, but let's check out the interior design. Now obviously, as we've been seeing, the screens dominate a big part of the design, but there's some familiar stuff here. You've got your Camaro style kind of turbine air vents here. You've got red interior with almost like a cross stitch here. This looks like it would be a carbon fiber. It's not, it's its own kind of design. And then you've got the turbine air vents over here with their own kind of strafes, interior kind of ribbing here, and then that design kind of continues here. And then interestingly, it translates into actual textured product here on the door card. Bright red interior, and then this kind of like 3-pronged thing that you see continued in the wireless charger. Your center console, super big and deep, and the same kind of 3-pronged flooring in there and in your cup holders. And then in terms of things like your climate controls, you do have physical controls. It will correspond to data up in the screen, but you do have physical controls at your disposal at all times. But then what about the rear seats? We'll check it out. I'll step in. I'll remind you I am 6'1", and look at that. I have miles of knee room. We'll go ahead and shut the door. And I even have headroom. This is something that I can't say in something like an EV6. We still have those turbine style air vents down here. We've got dual USB-C and 3-level heated seats back here in the rear, which is pretty impressive. We've got map pockets, we've got Alcantara, again the red leather continues, and Alcantara headrests, and of course some cup holders. But they don't have the 3-pronged cup holder flooring like you do in the front. And if you're wondering about towing in your Blazer EV, you can tow up to 1,500 pounds, which is about what you'll be able to tow in something like a Honda CR-V. Not bad. And then just touching on some of the luxuries that you get here. Now, things like heated and cooled front seats. You've also got a heated steering wheel option. Like I mentioned, you get a panoramic roof option, but you do have that Alcantara with RS embossed in here and some contrast red stitching, which is very nice. And what can be said about the very cool, very modern looking screens as standard. And the last thing that we'll talk about is price. Now, you can start to get into a Blazer EV at about $45,000, but if you want dual motor, all-wheel drive, and the RS trim here with a bunch of the goodies, we're testing at just over $60,000, which is a little bit more than an Ioniq 5 and an Ioniq 6 as fully loaded, so it's a little bit pricey. But if you want to go all the way up to the Blazer SS in the spring with all that power, you're going to go to $6,600 plus to start. So I think that's a good time to grab the key and go for a drive. Blazer EV RS Sport Mode. Foot down. And here we go. And 60. Okay, so here's the thing. This thing does have, or it can come with a wide open watts, which if you've paid any attention to like the Hummer EV, is like their watts to freedom or their launch control or whatever you want to call it, but it's big power right away for max fun. This thing does 0 to 60 in like the high 6 seconds or maybe up to 7 seconds. It does 288 horsepower, 333 pound-feet, and then basically what that means is it is not the fastest. The Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6 that we were just in do feel quicker, but this thing doesn't feel slow or sluggish or bad in any way. And if you really need more power, save your money until spring and get a Blazer EV SS, because that'll be like 550 horsepower, almost 650 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in like less than 4 seconds. So if you really need the sporty one, go for that. But here, I'm gonna throw it into normal, and it's just a good EV. I think it's nice. Like, the ride is pretty good. It's not as like cushy, wumpy, but I think that's kind of nice. Some people tend to get seasick if you have a lot of suspension travel. So I think it's a nice balance of firmness and sportiness from the suspension with also being nice and comfortable over, you know, county roads like this. In terms of cabin isolation, there's a little bit of wind noise coming off the A-pillar, but I don't have any music playing. If I did, I wouldn't be hearing any of that, so that would be fine. The seating position is very comfortable. I've got great visibility out the front, sides, and the rear. The steering, it's light. You know, this is a big heavy thing, and it's not a sports EV, so the steering isn't going to give you a lot, but again, you're probably not really looking for that. What you are looking for is a nice, well-rounded EV, and I think that's what you get here. The one thing that I do really like, though, that GM does, and we saw this on the Cadillac Lyriq that had come out, is you have this little paddle here, the regen paddle. So I don't like one pedal drive, I never have, but having something like this where I can just coast freely most of the time, which is what I want to be doing, and then when I come to a stop, I can just hold the regen paddle and then do a little regenning. You know, that's nice. I like that. Power. I do kind of wish it made more fun noises, but the Ioniq 6 or the Ioniq 5 doesn't make any noises. So yeah, I guess I'll take this. This isn't bad by any means. I like it. Okay, we'll do one more launch and I'll kind of leave you with my final thoughts. Power on. Oh, I'm in normal mode. It does feel noticeably a little bit slower than in sport mode, but it doesn't feel like slow or boring. Okay, anyway. Final thoughts, bullet points right quick. Interior, I like it. I think it's cool. I like the bright red. I'm not usually a red fan, but I think it's done tastefully with the contrasted two-tone with the black. There's plenty of interior design and texture going on to make it feel a little bit more expensive. I love the fact that you get the big screens as standard. The exterior design, I think it looks cool. At least it has some sense of styling or personality, which you don't get from things like I don't know, the Tesla, for example. And then the driving experience. It's nice. Is it a sports EV? No. Is it a good day-to-day EV? Absolutely. I think you get good range, the power and performance is good, and I think it's a good all-around EV. So with that, let's step outside and wrap it up. So those are the 16 things you need to know about the new Blazer EV. If you're more concerned and interested about how this thing competes against segment rivals like the Ioniq 5 or the Tesla Model Y, be sure to check out our Best and the Rest video that came on the channel earlier this week. But thanks again to our friends at Broadhead Chevrolet for letting us have a go in their Blazer EV. Make sure you check them out if you're in the market, and we'll see you in the next one.